Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformation. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Life Transformation Radio. I am your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and international best-selling author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 90 countries. So whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to us for some time, I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here is where we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing, highlighting that transformational moment that changed our lives and how we use it to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on the Blog Talk Radio Network, Tuesday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time by going to blogtalkradio.com/Life Transformation Radio. You can also join our Facebook group at Life Transformation Radio Community and never miss an episode by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Life Transformation Radio can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, Himalaya app, Google Podcasts, Pandora. We're everywhere. And we also have a YouTube channel at Life Transformation Radio. So subscribe to our channel, subscribe to the podcast, and please leave a rating and a review. We always love to see what you think of the show and the guests that we bring here. On the show, my guests are entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, amazing people who are impacting everyone around them. And my guest today does exactly that. If you have any questions for any of the guests that I bring on the show during our live broadcast, Tuesday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, give us a call at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. And with that, please help me welcome to the show my guest for today, Rick Patterson. Rick, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm super pumped to have you on the show. I think you've got an amazing book. I think you have an amazing topic. And it needs to be discussed more in depth than just to kind of touch on it a little bit and run away. Which I think is what some people do sometimes. You know, the main question that comes up a lot when dealing with kids. You got kids?
Yes, sir.
So if something happens and you're in another room and you hear glass break, first question, what was that? What was that? Right? And then you go up and there's a lamp broken. You're like, how did that get broken? And the kids just look at you. And maybe somebody pipes up, I'm sorry, I did. It was like, why did you do that? What were you thinking? Like so many, like what transpired? I wasn't in the room. How the heck did this happen? Now I have a broken lamp. What the heck happened? Like you want to know why, you want to know how, you want to know what, you want to know it all. And if you take that into a large scale, somebody cheats, somebody decides to quit a job, somebody decides to get a divorce, what for anything. Could be positive, could be negative. We always want to know the what, the how, the why. Like we're information sponges, and we just can't let things go without knowing the full picture. That's what I believe.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because you bring up the point of it. Some of my most transformational moments were with my kids, and I can see myself in that moment when my child has broken a lamp, and I can feel my own temperature rising, and I'm getting angry, and my fists are starting to clench, and my kids are lying to me, but right now, what I wasn't able to do before, but I begin to ask myself, why am I so angry right now? Why is that happening? And for me, that was a huge transformational thing, is to be able to just pause for a minute and be able to ask myself in the midst of that, why am I about to react the way I'm about to react in this situation?
Wow. So there's a little introspective kind of thought process that needs to happen too, which I don't think really happens in the moment. I mean, when you're really in the moment, someone's making you mad, someone, you ever notice that we don't need all the information when something amazing happens? So when something bad happens, like you got promoted, you're like, that's awesome. You're not like, well, who promoted you? How did you get the promotion? Did you work hard? What do you get now? How much money you make now? Like, we don't care. We're like, cool, awesome. But when something bad happens, you're like, oh, no way. What happened? How did it go? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we got to know the juicy details. When something positive happens, like, I'm getting married. You're like, cool. When's the date? Awesome. I'll make it. And that's it. You leave it alone. You're like, awesome. You don't be like, oh, well, I got to have kids and we're going to live in it. Like, you don't ask them a million questions. It's only the negative things that you ask a million questions about.
Yeah, and it's really, it's funny because a lot of times the drivers can be very similar that ends you up in different places. It's just just like you say, in any major or minor life decision, it's being able to pause and to be able to say, why am I about to do what I'm doing? And it may be great, it may not be great, but just to be able to take that breather before you actually make a decision is a life-changing experience in and of itself.
For sure. So the title of this episode is Shame Unmasked with author Rick Patterson. Most of us make important choices reactively based on our past experiences. Too often, our mistakes and failures negatively impact our decision-making. It's a vicious cycle that seems impossible to break. What if there was a way to hone in on the root cause and break free from this toxic cycle of shame? What if you can stop playing the shame game? Rick Patterson has a unique perspective on isolating the internal critic and dismantling the voices that control your path, giving you hope for a more liberated future. Rick combined his doctoral degree and decades in corporate America, years of professional ministry, and lessons as the adoptive father of a sibling group of 4 African-American preteens to develop practical understanding on how shame works and how to live beyond it. His website is rickpattersоnconnects.com. It's right there in the show notes. Make sure you click on that and see what he has to offer. Check out his social media, Facebook at Rick Patterson Connects. Send him a request. Go to his website. Check out his videos. They're very, very good. And then let him know that you listened to this episode of Life Transformation Radio. Rick, after doing that, the first question that I have to ask, and I believe is the most important question, we kind of touched on it, but I want to know what your why is. So why do you do what you do?
It's like I discovered a hidden gem, and maybe I'm surely not the first one who discovered it because I've read a lot of other authors writing about the same stuff. You, for example, but this hidden gem is that there is a sort of an underlying thread to a lot of our destructive decisions. And that hidden gem I found when I just looked at the whole mosaic of my life, from corporate America to professional ministry to being the adoptive father of this group of kids. And I could just see it all come together, where I see that really this hidden driver within all of us, this thing called shame. If I could just expose this culprit, that's driving a lot of the destructive decisions in our lives. If I could just expose this culprit to people, make people aware that it may be affecting their lives in a negative way, I just love the idea, the thoughts of the sort of liberation that could bring to people, to allow them to begin making what I call making their own decisions instead of having their psychology make their decisions for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that says a lot. And I think if you add, so you said psychology, but if you add social to that, it brings up a whole other dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because, what shame is trying to do is trying to protect us from social embarrassment, social pain, having our flaws and weaknesses sort of exposed to the world. And so shame is really all about helping us, so to speak, by protecting us, helping us hide, helping us make decisions that prevent us from really living life out of fear, that our weaknesses and shortcomings will be exposed to the world, this sort of social interaction. And so shame's great end game is that we'll be completely isolated from other people for fear of being found out.
But I think what we should do right now is really define what you're talking about here, and in the sense of shame. And when I think of shame, I just think of how people will think about me. Ultimately, when I think of the word shame, am I shaming myself, or do I feel shameful? I feel like there's a difference between remorse and feeling sorry that, man, I shouldn't have done that. Like if I said something mean to my wife, right? Like, man, I shouldn't have said that. Like, dang it, man. I feel bad. But I'm not sure that feeling bad or feeling regret or feeling remorse is the same thing as shame. I'm just not sure. I'm not talking about a psychology or like a Webster's dictionary. Just me, Sean, hanging out. I don't know. I don't think that that's the same. When I think of shame, I think of something that other people will think about you. My wife might think that maybe he's not the husband for me. If I said to my kids, like, maybe he's not the father I thought he was. You know, maybe my family will be like, maybe he's not a nice guy. Because back in old, Asian culture and a couple other cultures, we hear like you bring shame on your family. It's a big thing. Like you don't have no honor. You have nothing but shame on your family, whatever. Or you'll hear older people like grandparents be like, shame on you. Like you're bad. Shame on you, So I don't know, man. What do you think? I just don't think that it's the same. Like shame, I think is its own category.
Somebody helped me out with something one time, and I wish I could remember exactly where I saw this definition, but it's it's a description of the difference between guilt and shame. And it really crystallizes the stuff you've just been talking about. But guilt says you did wrong. Guilt says you did bad. Shame says I am bad. Guilt says, oh, I just made a mistake. I just screwed up. And shame says you are a screw up. And shame is all about who we are in our completeness. Whereas guilt, and I always say this, guilt can actually turn out to some pretty cool stuff. If I did bad, if I made a mistake, those feelings of guilt, remorse, those things you talked about, those can actually motivate some really good outcomes. It can motivate an apology. It can motivate making amends. It can motivate your own personal transformation. You know what I'm saying? Guilt can actually be a driver to some pretty healthy things. But if shame gets a hold of guilt, and all of a sudden, yes, I made a mistake, therefore I am a mistake, then there's no good that can come of that. And when we are feeling shame, for instance, I don't want to get caught that I just stole money out of the plate, It's not so much that we're afraid that people will know we stole something. It's that they will know that we are a thief. You're right. It's that we in our total entirety, our total self, have been exposed for the cheat, the liar, the idiot that we believe in our hearts that we probably are.
That's deep.
So, shame is a very broad, deep driver. And what we, from the earliest of ages, I say, a lot of people talk also of shame as an emotion, but I think more of shame is like a psychological construct, and we begin to develop tools to figure out how to prevent people from becoming aware of what we're afraid they'll become aware of. That they will find out that I am a liar, not that I've lied. That's guilt, but they will find out I am a liar. They will find out I am an idiot, and so we begin to put on masks. We begin to put on. Make decisions. We begin to think and work differently in a way of actually projecting an image to the world that we're, there's something different than we actually are. Perfectionism is a great example of it. Shame drives perfectionism like nobody's business.
I wonder how closely related imposter syndrome is to shame then.
Yeah, I think because my mask of choice is narcissism, and it's not well understood. A lot of people think narcissism is about self-love, but narcissism is really rooted in self-hate, self-hatred, shame. Shame drives narcissism. So
really?
What I found out that I had to do, because I was so full of shame and self-hate, I had to project an image to the world, if you will, the imposter syndrome. I had to project an image to the world that I was in control, that I was productive, that I was of value to the world. And I had to project this image of, quote unquote, self-confidence, so that people would be thrown off track from really my fear that I'm none of those things. And here's where it becomes really devastating is people will then begin to give you accolades for your performance, for your output, for all the stuff you do, for all the stuff you've done. And in your soul, you believe to yourself, that's not really even mine. That's my imposters. If they really knew the real me, they wouldn't be giving me any of this. With those sort of masks, you really build yourself into a catch-22.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it that way. Deep, man. A lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome. I did once. I mean, we flew to Colorado. I was speaking at Colorado Springs at the Air Force Base there, super pumped. And I register all my stuff, travel, everything, way ahead of time. And they're like, let me get your travel information so that we can, track things and, whatever. I'm like, okay, cool, So I just rented a regular car, nothing fancy, a hotel. Me and the wife were going there. They're like, who's coming with you? I said, me and my wife are going to come on this trip for the weekend. Got a couple friends that I was stationed with in the military, living in Colorado Springs. Going to go meet with them. To the car rental place. And they're like, oh, we're going to pull your car around. And they pull around, brand new BMW. I think it was like a 5 Series. I don't even know what it was. I was like, what is this? Like, what is this? I didn't ask for that. They know you got upgraded. I'm like, what? Like, okay. Got in the car. Couldn't even figure out how to start it. Like, how do you, like, where's shift, like, paddle shift? Like, how do you start it? Like, you have to lift this thing with these paddles. I'm like, and the lady's like, seriously, you don't know? I was like, I'm not fancy. I don't know how to drive it, right? So that was the first clue. I'm like, all right, well, we'll see how this trip's going to go, right? We drive to the hotel, and they said, hey, you're on the whatever the floor, 7th floor, whatever. It was like high up. And I was like, well, I just have a regular room. Like, you've been upgraded. I'm like, oh, my God. Here we go. I now know what is behind the double doors of a hotel. Because we get to the room, and I'm like, this is a big door. like what is this? So we pull the card out, wipe, walk in, kitchen to the right, dining room to the right, a living area with pull-out couches and chairs right there in front of you, kind of to the left. And then the bedroom suite is to the left with the huge bathroom with double sinks on each end of the wall. That's how big this thing is. Own shower, own bathtub. Like love-making jacuzzi jet tub. This thing was incredible. And like the most amazing Colorado view of the mountains that I've ever seen. And I was like, like, why? Like, it's just me and you. Like, I don't need this. Like, crazy. She's like, no, this is beautiful. I'm like, well, yeah, but I was fine with a double bed hotel. Like, I don't need this. She goes, have you seen the bathroom? You hush your face. Look at the bathroom, man. My wife soaked it up, man. She goes, I'm going to get in the tub. You go do what you want to do. Go hang out downstairs at the bar. Like, you go do what you want to do. Like, my wife was like, leave me alone. I was like, this is nuts. So some friends came over. We were upstairs. We had the dining room table to play cards at. The TV was on. Nice couch to hang out. Like, it was really nice. And even the friends were like, what? What is that? I was like, I didn't pay for that. I paid for a regular room. I just got upgraded somehow. you know. And then the event host was like, "Do you like your accommodations?" I'm like, yeah, yes, I do. I was like, "You didn't have to do that." They're like, "I know," and it sucks when I say that. You did not have to. I know they didn't have to. I know, but I'm like, it's what do you say? It's like when you're at a funeral, you're like, "Sorry about your loss." Like, are you really sorry, or like, I mean, just feel like come up with something different, right? So I always say I cannot feel what you feel at this moment. I can't even imagine what you're feeling, but I'm here for you. Like, that's what I say. I don't say sorry for your loss. Like, am I, like, what do I got to be sorry for? I didn't kill the person. Right? Like, what do I got to be sorry for? So what I say is, I'm really sorry. I'm not sorry, but I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. I can't feel what you feel right now, but I'm here for you. You know, so I want to use empathy instead. So of course I go, "Oh, you didn't have to do that," and they're like, "I know." I'm like, "I'm not trying to insult you. I just can't believe it. Like, that was completely unexpected, and thank you so much for that. It was beautiful." And they were like, "Yeah, no problem. Like, we just want to make sure." I'm like, "I couldn't even start the car." They start laughing. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "I couldn't start the car. I'm not fancy. I don't know. I put a key in. There's no key. It's a fob." I'm like, "Where's the key?" Like, yeah, it was weird. So I had that imposter syndrome. You know, and it's a learning moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting how your emotions sort of react to that moment. You know, do you have to defend yourself to your friends? Hey, I didn't pay for this, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and why do you suddenly feel defensive about the fact that you're in this nice
and I
room,
totally
you know?
did.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And because how would, you know, so part of that reaction that, you know, why you have to defend yourself and say, "This isn't me, this isn't me, this isn't me, this isn't me." You know, part of that is the conversation that Shame's having with you to make sure that everybody doesn't get the wrong idea about you. You know, to your point, why do you care what they think about you right now? It really isn't you. You didn't do it. Why do you care what they think? You know?
Wow. Oh, man. Yeah, you bring up a very good. Wow. I kind of did, though. Yeah, I teed it up so nicely. They're like, "Man, look at this place." I'm like, "I didn't pay for this, man." I had a double. I had a double bed. You know, like I was trying to like bring myself lower.
Yes, that's exactly right, though. But that's what Shame will do. It doesn't really wouldn't matter if, let's say, the situation were reversed and you didn't tell anybody because you wanted everybody to think that that's who you were, that you are now this famous, this set up, this wealthy.
Right.
You know, that also is shame. But however we're doing it, whatever we're doing to sort of, you know, make sure that people know that we're not that, is you know, insisting that we, you know, hide our worst fears, you know.
Mm-hmm. So after that, so on the way back, we were just talking. Me and the wife was just kind of talking. Wow, what an amazing trip! And you know, I was like, "Is this how like rich people live? Like, is this like? I mean, it's nice. It's a nice place to be. Like, you know, like it's really nice, you know." And so I got booked somewhere else, and I told her, I said, "I think I'm going to fly first class." She's like, "Oh my gosh, it's so expensive. Like, why? Oh my gosh, why would you?" I was like, "It's actually not. I got to pay like another." I mean, the flight was like, I don't know, like $600 or something like that, flying to California. And I said, "You know what? I want to pay the extra like $200 or $300, and I'm going to get a first class flight. I just want to see like first class." She's like, "Yeah." So I flew from North Carolina to LA, first class. I will never fly anything but first class again. Yeah. I don't care who knows it. The leg room alone is worth the extra $200-$300.
Yep.
Man. Yep. So that was the transformational moment for me. I'm curious for you, what was your transformational moment that changed you and put you on the path to what you're doing today?
Yeah, you know, this is also my pre-cop-out answer is, you know, there's just so many of them. It's almost like, and I don't know if everybody's life is like this, but my life is like this series of transformational moments that get me on the way and then keep tweaking it as it goes along, you know. So picking one in particular would be hard to do. You know, I can think one of them for sure. I can think all the way back. I'd just been married a couple of years, and my wife and I had had a big fight about something. And it turns out, I look back, and all fights were always about how I am right. She has to agree that the fact that I'm right before anything can end. It is so critical for me to be right. And I remember driving with a friend. I can remember specifically where I was in the car, what road I was on. I remember realizing out loud, what if I'm not right? I mean, for starters, you got to ask yourself, what kind of person even asks themselves that? Of course, you're not right at the time. You know? That by itself, dude, there's something wrong here. But then I asked, you know, what if I just like in the heat of that battle, in any battle I'm in, what if I'm able just to pause in the heat of that battle and I'm just able to say, what if she's right? She's right. Maybe you should just listen to her because she might be right. And what it did, it sounds ridiculously small and easy, but what that did in that moment is gave me what I call the opportunity for empathy. And I thought, you know, even if my wife isn't right, but even if I pause for a minute and listen to her, then what would that do for my wife to be heard, to be listened to? How will that change her day, her week, our relationship? Man, she's right. Think of
she's
how
usually
many
right.
Yeah, think of how many times she's actually right, and I go around not aware of what's actually right. You know, I miss out on growth, the awareness, the learning, all of that stuff, and what that really brought about to me is this desire to understand why I am this way. Not just can I see what I want to get to the root, Sean. That's what I want to do. I want to get to the root because having to be right, that's like weed. And I keep cutting that weed down. Keep cutting the weed down, mowing over it, you know, stuff like that. But that problem is that weed's going to keep coming back. I'm always going to have that desire to be right, unless I figure out why. What is motivating my continual desire to be right? And for me, it was a pivot moment where I began to try and assess all the whys of my decisions, and just simply try to be a better employee, a better husband, a better father, and honestly be the real me, be the true me, instead of having to prove my rightness to the world, my wife, my coworkers, and actually live my own life instead of being dictated to me by psychology.
It sounds like the need to be right might be rooted in some of the things that we're talking about, like being known as a person of value. Like if you're right, it's some kind of authority, some kind of a credibility. Like, dude's right a lot. Like he knows what he's talking about. Like we can trust him, and you get that credibility, you get that authority, you get that leadership tag. Like he's a thought leader. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. Totally see that. Yep. I told you, I'm kind of the same way. I'm not as bad as I was, but like I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, yo, if I'm right, I'm going to argue it until I'm right. Because
exactly,
like you're wrong. It almost makes me more mad that they won't admit that they were wrong than admitting that I was right. Like that makes they're like, no. I'm like, dude, the grass is green. No, it's like a forest green, or it's like a brown color because it's almost dead. Dude, grass is green, sky's blue. Well, no, it's actually not blue. It's actually the atmosphere that makes it blue with the sun's rays. It's actually black. But you don't see black during the day because the sun's rays is. And I'm like, oh my god, dude, the sun, it's blue. Okay, it is blue. And they'll come up with like a million, and then they'll try to like jerk this thing around, and I'm like, oh my gosh, listen, this is how it is. This is the like proven fact, and it's just like they don't want to listen, you know. And it's like the talk that we hear now, you know, on media and the news and like everything else. Like they don't listen. No, they don't listen. No, they don't. It's like everybody's like in uproar and shambles and fighting and everything. They don't listen. They don't like. I bet if you had some people listen to each other and accepted the fact that their opinions are not fact, but that they're just that. They're just an opinion. I bet we wouldn't have so much hatred.
Yeah, and that's really the goal. Yeah, no, it really is. And shame drives hatred. Shame's goal is to separate us. Nothing separates us. And when I took those, and I always make a point of mentioning that my kids are African American because they taught me so much about the hatred and the separation that we need to ostracize certain people to feel good about ourselves. We need to prove that we're right and they're wrong because it makes us feel good about ourselves. We need to, we need to glorify the fact that I'm white and you're black because it makes it, because we're so weak inside that we don't feel good about ourselves, and really that's shame talking. And it gets even better if you and I, Sean, a couple of white guys can look and say, hey, look at that bozo over there, because then we're in agreement. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then we can feel good about each other only because we found somebody that, that we think is worse than us. But really that's what shame tries to do. It tries to separate us from other people, not because we actually think we're better than them, but because we're afraid we're not. And it insists that we somehow try to elevate ourselves so that at least for a moment, we can feel good about ourselves. And it's addictive, that feeling.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Let's talk about your book, Shame Unmasked. Why did you write it, and what is it about?
Yeah, I realized, through the research, my doctoral dissertation was actually on how shame and narcissism drive church leadership.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, and I was part of the.
Did not see that coming.
I was part of the church leadership at the time, and so but it really was, and when I so this book actually came out of years afterwards, came out of that whole work I did in my doctoral dissertation. But one of the things that people talk about with shame is that one of the antidotes for shame is vulnerability. Really to get out in the world and say, okay, this is me. This is who I really am. This is me. And it's why Brene Brown's talk was so, wildly popular, And what's weird about vulnerability is when we are actually vulnerable, we feel like crap. But the rest of the world looks at us and says, wow, man, that was really powerful.
Yes.
And vulnerability heals. And so one of the things that I was trying to do two things with the book. One was I was trying to practice what I preached, and I was trying to be vulnerable, and I was trying to show people what pastors really think, what's really going on behind the pulpit, and what's really going on in corporate America, and what's really going on as a parent, and how those things have really, I've seen all those things driven by shame. And I was trying to practice vulnerability. I was trying to practice what I preached in order to gain some continued healing for myself. But the second part of it was, too, very important to this, is I wanted to send people a message who were going through similar things, struggling with the why of their life, why they were making decisions they were making, why they were suffering with choices, self-defeating behaviors. And I wanted to send a message to those people that just says this: you're not alone. You're not alone. I've been successful in corporate America and ministry, and through all of that, I'm right here struggling with you at the exact same time. And I thought, if I can heal myself through vulnerability and reach out to other people at the same time to tell them that I'm struggling and we're struggling, we can struggle together, then I would have done a lot to really do some destruction to shame in the world, to really take shame down a notch in myself and maybe in other people also.
There you go. I like that. I mean, there's got to be a level of awareness that comes during these moments. And I think a lot of people miss that. we talked about my book. My book's called Decisions, The Power to Overcome Self-Defeating Behaviors. Self-defeating behaviors can be anything from addiction, depression, anxiety, whatever. Like, it could be mental health, whatever. Or it could be your need to be right. It could be imposter syndrome.
Yes.
It could be you're just a very argumentative person to argue to be right all the time. And I know people like that. Or you're a show-off. You're whatever. It's something that is self-defeating. You have no self-love. You have no self-worth. You value possessions. You value material things and not, you value worldly things rather than something spiritual. It could be a self-defeating behavior. But the most common self-defeating behavior is the opinion of yourself and holding the people's opinions of you more valuable than you would the opinion of your own. Most common. Because like, well, I don't know what Tammy's gonna think. Oh man, I'm gonna hear it from Tammy. Like, why do you care what Tammy thinks, or Bob, or Steve, or Karen, or whatever you want? Right? Like, oh man, I'm gonna hear it. And here's what we normally do. Oh man, dude, my mom is gonna kill me. Like even as an adult, I know I'm like, man. Oh, man, I don't know. Should I tell my mom? She's like, my mom's like, why? You're a freaking adult. Like, why the hell does your mom need to know? Like, man, my mom finds out and I didn't tell her. I'm going to be like, she's like, how come you didn't tell me? I don't know, Mom. I just, didn't want to tell you. That's so ridiculous. And how can you not tell your mother? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't tell her. I'm gonna hear about what I didn't tell her. If I tell her, then she's gonna give me a lecture about how I'm irresponsible. She's gonna tear me down. She's gonna tell me that I'm 30-something years old, can't get my life together. Why is your life not together? Like I'm gonna hear all this ridiculousness. I'm like, I'm damned if I do, or damned if I don't. But sometimes people operate like that. You have a parent, and you're like, man, here we go. Or you have a sibling rivalry. It's another common one. They have sibling rivalries. It's like, I look better than my brother, my sister, my cousin, my whatever. Got to look better than them. Oh, they got a trophy wife, or they got a huge promotion. They're making 100 G's. I'm working at McDonald's. It's almost like you're in competition with them. And who put the competition there? Did the parents' competition there? Like, I love him more than you? Or did you place a competition there on your own? And then it just drives you to depression.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great point.
I see it.
Yep.
I see it everywhere.
Yep. And we can do that with our own. We can do that with our own selves. I mean, we could be competing with our own selves, so that when we go out there, we go out on a limb, we try something, we fail, we fall down, we break a bone, so to speak, and we can get back up and we say, "You idiot! Why can't you be more like this other Rick that we want you to be like? Why do you got to be this stupid idiot Rick?" You know what I'm saying? So you can even create that little world inside your own psyche,
Yep. It reminds me of the movie Hitch. You seen Hitch with Will Smith?
I have seen Hitch. I like it. Yep.
Yeah, man. And he is the way he is because of a bad breakup. The guy had braces. It was like, gross, right? And then Kevin, what's his name? The guy who he's working with, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to dance. I'm going to dance. Like, cleaning my ears, throw it away. Or the dice, right? He's like, dancing. He's like, no. Right here, this is your move. This is where you live. And he's like moving back and forth from left to right, snapping his fingers like, this is it. This is where you live. This is all you do. This is it. You know what I mean? Like, girls don't like that. They need to like you for this. Instead of saying, you know what? Be yourself. You'll find someone that loves you. Not worried about it. Nope. You got to try to put on this persona that you're going to be accepted. And I think that's the root of everything we're talking about is we want to be accepted. We want to feel accepted. We want to know that we are accepted into a societal rank, into a marriage, into a brotherhood in the military, into a sisterhood, in a sorority, anything. We want to feel like we are a part of the team, a part of the group, a part of humanity. And people base that on other people's opinions. And I think that acceptance is really where the end result lies, or the beginning of shame lies, is in the acceptance.
Absolutely. And, shame's greatest, you're absolutely right. Shame's greatest fear is that when people find out who we really are, they will abandon us.
Mm.
And that is what shame is really trying to prevent by forcing us to look better, act better, be better, and do all these things to present this facade, like you said, to people, so that ultimately they won't abandon us. One of my daughters taught me that. These are adopted girls, and they've been abandoned once already, and they're waiting for their adoptive white parents to abandon them again.
Yeah.
I thought this is shame's goal, is to find a way to protect ourselves from being abandoned.
Wow. And that's tough, man. So as we wrap up, I want to know how you elevate the world around you. Sounds like you've adopted some girls. You wrote a book. So what would you say that Rick does to elevate the world around him?
Well, Sean, I got a superpower. I don't know if you know coming into this show, but I have a superpower.
I like it.
And my superpower is giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Wow.
And that doesn't sound like much of a superpower, but I'm telling you, Sean, it's extremely rare.
Yeah.
And so there's all these things. Yes, I wrote a book, and yes, I adopted these kids, and all these things, that are sort of global things I do to reach out. But the one thing I can do with every human interaction, especially the ones that go bad, and frankly, a lot go bad. I mean, wherever two or more are gathered, Sean, there's going to be conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's going to get in a fight. But what my superpower, the gift I try to give to the world, is to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe they're going through something today. Or maybe it's me. Maybe I didn't understand what they were really trying to say. Or maybe they need to lash out at me because someone just lashed out at them. And I think that's really the one thing I'm trying to do to elevate the world around me, is just to give people a break. And it sounds simple, but frankly, it is. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Wow. Man, that's tough, but necessary. The benefit of the doubt. Yep, I certainly don't do that. I don't make rash judgments, but I mean, I don't necessarily do that. I mean, I want to gather all the facts. I don't just be like, oh, she said it, it's true. I'm not like that. But like with my girls who are 6 and 14, 14-year-old says the 6-year-old did something. 6-year-old denies it. I'll go, well, 6-year-old denies it, so you're wrong, or whatever. I'm like, no, what exactly happened? Right? So I guess I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like my mind's made up, like, you're this way. You're in this moment acting ugly. I'm like, well, maybe I should give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she's having a bad day. I'm like, you're acting ugly. So I'm not going to deal with this. And my mentor, John Vroman, when it comes to kids, and you'll appreciate this, he says, when it comes to kids, we often see them as they are, not who they could become.
Yeah.
And I was like, ouch. Ouch. And so I catch myself sometimes. You're never going to, you're not going to succeed in life if you do this. You're never going to, whatever. So now I flip it. I'm like, you have the power to succeed, but not like this. You have the ability to do this. So I empower them, but not like this. This isn't the way to do it. You're going to go far, but not like this. I just switch it.
That's fascinating. The kids taught me so much, and you have such an opportunity if you can just pause and listen to the space in which they give to teach you about them, who they are, and to teach you about who you are. I got in a fight one time. I get in a lot of fights. You probably pick up on that, which is one of my issues. I got to ask myself, why do I get in all these fights? One of my kids, teenage girl, rolled her eyes at me. And yeah, exactly. Now,
is she breathing okay?
I don't know. I don't know why that, so I asked, why is it? But man, that always would set me off. They roll their eyes at me, and man, I went off, and I hit a door, and then I hit a wall, and then I hit an oak bookcase, and busted my hand, and ended up in the hospital. But in that moment, for starters, why am I doing this? This is something an adult man should have some control over.
Right?
As a teenage girl that's what girls do, is they roll their eyes. And then I realized in that moment is, when a teenage girl rolls her eyes at you, she's saying to you, "You're an idiot." And at that moment, I thought, oh, shoot, she's found out. She's figured it out. She's found out I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to parent her. I've never had kids before. Suddenly I got 4 of them, and she's figured out I'm an idiot. I'm a moron.
Yeah.
And so I have to distract her with my anger. But what I really miss out on is I miss out on the opportunity to ask, why did my girl have to roll her eyes at me? What was going on inside her? What sort of pain was she in that she had to? I mean, that's the only way she can attack me. She can't do anything else. Why in that moment did she feel a need to attack me? Why did she feel threatened by me and her dad? And I missed an opportunity in that moment because of shame. I missed an opportunity to deeply care about my daughter.
Yeah.
I was too concerned about myself. And that's another transformational, but this is the stop.
Yeah.
I have to be a man who cares more about his kids than cares about himself, period.
For sure. For sure. Wow. Rick, man, I loved the conversation. Amazing book that you wrote. I feel like we could take this in so many different directions, man. But I want you right now to go to rickpattersonconnects.com. Go check out what he's doing. Go check out his videos and his speaking and everything. So, Rick, where can we get your book, Shame Unmasked?
It's on Amazon, but if you go to my website, rickpattersonconnects.com, there's a link take you right there. But if you just Google Rick Patterson Shame Unmasked, you'll find it on Amazon also.
Perfect. As we close the show, what's a message you want to give to the listeners? What would be the takeaway that the listeners should receive from this episode?
I want people to know that they're not alone. People are struggling.
Yeah.
That they're struggling with their own depression, their own anger, their own narcissism, their own perfectionism, their own suicidal ideation. I mean, how many of us have been there? And I want to tell people that regardless of those situations and in the midst of that you are not alone, that we are with you. We have been doing we've been through that path. You are not alone. Keep walking it, and we will all find a way to walk it together.
Yeah. That's awesome. Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I'm so happy to have you. And I believe this was an amazing conversation that's really going to make people think, make people take action. We'll take action. And I think that someone's listening to this and they're like, yep, that's me. Yep. They're describing me exactly or I love the show. I get an email from somebody who's like, the show made me think never thought about it like that before. And it just kind of twists their mind up and they're like, huh.
Yep.
Never would have guessed. I never would have thought about it like that. And they see it from a different angle and they're like, oh, and they get it. That's what I love.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Life Transformation Radio, there's an amazing guest impacting the world around him. If any part of our conversation today with author Rick Patterson resonated with you in any way, touched your heart, touched your soul, please reach out to rickpattersonconnects.com. It's right there in the show notes. Click on that, look at his website, and check him out. We ask that you subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. And as of April 1st, the new host will be taking over. We're talking about it for a little bit. The new host will be taking over. Life Transformation Radio sale is complete. Life Transformation Radio has been sold. It will still continue on, but a different host will be taking over, and I'll pop in every once in a while to co-host and to check in on you guys. So I thank you for your support over the last 4 years. Thank you for all of your comments and all of your reviews, and I wish you the best for the rest of 2021. As we close the show, I always say, live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this live your brand. So until next episode, live an amazing life.